And the Indiana Fever have pulled off the upset, the 6th seed, beating Vegas 89-73 to take Game 1.
There are nights in sports that feel pre-written. Nights where the narrative is so strong, so universally accepted, that the game itself feels like a formality, a simple acting out of a script we've all already read. This was supposed to be one of those nights. In the heart of Las Vegas, under the blinding lights of Michelob Ultra Arena, a coronation was underway. This wasn't just Game 1 of the WNBA Semifinals. It was a celebration of dominance, a victory lap for the two-time defending champions, the Las Vegas Aces. The air was thick with inevitability. Banners hung from the rafters like silent monuments to past conquests, and the crowd buzzed with the easy confidence of a fanbase that had forgotten what it felt like to lose when it mattered. And at the center of it all stood Aaliyah Wilson, the league's newly crowned most valuable player, hoisting her trophy at center court. It was a perfect scene, a perfect story. The best player on the best team, honored in front of her adoring fans, on the eve of what everyone believed would be another relentless march to the finals. The script was locked in. But there was one problem. On the other side of the court, watching this ceremony unfold, was the Indiana Fever. And they hadn't read the script. In fact, they were about to tear it to shreds. To call the Fever underdogs would be a profound understatement. They limped into Vegas not as a team, but as a mash unit, a collection of survivors held together by athletic tape and sheer defiance. The injury report was a horror story. No Caitlin Clark, the generational phenom whose gravity had reshaped their entire season. No Sophie Cunningham, a vital floor spacer. No Sydney Colson, no Erica Wheeler, no Damaris Dantas, no Chloe Bibby. 6 players, a significant portion of their rotation, were relegated to the sidelines. The team that had battled so fiercely to get here was a ghost of its former self. ESPN analysts, oddsmakers, basketball experts, they weren't just predicting a loss, they were predicting a demolition. The conversation wasn't about whether Indiana could win, but whether they could avoid historic humiliation. The betting lines were so lopsided they were practically a joke, focusing on the Aces' margin of victory rather than the outcome itself. The narrative was clear. The Fever were the sacrificial lambs, a feel-good story that had reached its inevitable, brutal conclusion. They were simply the background actors in Aaliyah Wilson's MVP celebration. They were lucky to even be there. And as the game began, that narrative seemed to hold. The Aces, fueled by the energy of the ceremony, looked every bit the part of a juggernaut. But then, something shifted. It wasn't a sudden earthquake, but a subtle tremor. A defensive stop here. A tough basket there. The Fever weren't just absorbing punches. They were throwing them back. They were dictating the pace, making the champions uncomfortable, forcing them to play a game they didn't want to play. The easy coronation was becoming a street fight. The architect of this rebellion? Kelsey Mitchell. While every camera and every eye had been locked on Aaliyah Wilson, Mitchell was quietly sharpening her tools, preparing to conduct a masterpiece of offensive brilliance. For years, Mitchell has been the heart and soul of this Fever franchise, a relentlessly elite scorer who persevered through countless losses and rebuilding seasons. She was respected, but often as an afterthought in a league brimming with superstars. She was the loyal soldier, not the conquering hero. Tonight, she became both. Mitchell didn't just play well, she played with a surgeon's precision and a warrior's fury. She turned the semifinal opener into her own personal stage, a showcase of everything that makes her one of the league's most dangerous guards. It started with a pull-up jumper that seemed to silence the arena for a split second. Then a deep three-pointer that announced her arrival with authority. Every time the Aces tried to impose their will, Mitchell had an answer. She navigated through screens with an effortless grace, hit mid-range shots with defenders draped all over her, and attacked the rim with a fearlessness that bordered on audacious. She was a one-woman demolition crew, dismantling the league's best defense piece by piece. The Aces threw different defenders at her, Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray, but it didn't matter. Mitchell was in a zone that was impervious to defensive schemes or star power. She was playing a different game, fueled by years of being overlooked, and in the shadow of the MVP spotlight, she was shining brighter than anyone. This wasn't just a hot streak, it was a statement. It was a declaration that while Las Vegas was celebrating one MVP, Indiana had one of their own, and she was putting the entire league on notice. Her performance was a direct challenge to the pre-written script, an act of defiance that sent shockwaves through the arena. The crowd, once so confident, began to murmur. The swagger of the defending champions started to crack. The coronation was cancelled. A real basketball game had broken out, and Kelsey Mitchell was its undisputed star. The background actors were suddenly running the show. But a playoff upset of this magnitude is never the work of a single player. Kelsey Mitchell's offensive explosion was the thunder, the glorious, headline-grabbing sound of the storm, but the lightning, the silent, devastating force that truly broke the champions, was a team-wide defensive masterpiece. This wasn't just resistance, it was a systematic dismantling. Head coach Stephanie White had crafted a brilliant blueprint designed to attack the very heart of the Aces' identity. While Las Vegas prepared for a celebration, the Fever prepared for war, and their strategy was built on a simple, audacious premise: make the MVP look human. The assignment fell to Aaliyah Boston, the formidable sophomore center. Her task was arguably the toughest in all of basketball: guard Aaliyah Wilson. Wilson, fresh off her MVP coronation, is more than a scorer. She's an offensive engine who thrives on rhythm and physical dominance. Most defenders try to simply survive the matchup. Boston, however, chose to dominate it. From the opening tip, she engaged in a masterclass of defensive disruption. It wasn't about blocking shots. It was about denying Wilson her space, her comfort, her very rhythm. Boston used her strength not to match Wilson, but to nudge her, to push her a foot further from the block than she wanted to be, to force every catch under duress. Wilson is at her best when she can catch, turn, and fire in one fluid motion. Boston's strategy was to break that chain. She was a constant physical presence, using her lower body to hold her ground and her active hands to disrupt entry passes. Every touch for Wilson became a grueling battle. The fluid, MVP-level offense we had just celebrated was reduced to a series of clunky, difficult post-ups late in the shot clock. The psychological toll was visible. Frustration began to creep into Wilson's game. Shots that are normally automatic for her started rimming out. She was still getting her numbers, as all great players do, but the efficiency was gone. The effortless dominance was replaced by a laborious grind. Aaliyah Boston didn't just guard the MVP, she planted a seed of doubt in the heart of the Aces' offense, and from that seed, a forest of uncertainty began to grow. This individual battle was a microcosm of the entire game, Indiana refusing to play their assigned role, instead imposing their will on the champions in a way no one thought possible. It was a statement that echoed louder than any jump shot. The MVP trophy was in the building, but the best big on the floor tonight was wearing an Indiana Fever jersey. This defensive suffocation extended far beyond the paint. On the perimeter, the Fever's guards executed their assignments with a relentless tenacity. Lexi Hull was tasked with shadowing Jackie Young, one of the league's most dynamic and efficient scorers. Young excels in motion, using screens and cuts to find open space. Hull treated the assignment like a personal vendetta, sticking to Young's hip through every screen, fighting over the top, and refusing to give an inch of breathing room. Young, who normally serves as a critical secondary release valve for the Aces, was effectively erased from the offensive flow. Her impact was muted, her rhythm broken. Odyssey Sims, meanwhile, brought a chaotic, fiery energy to the defensive end, creating havoc and forcing turnovers. But the true genius of Indiana's plan was revealed in the box score, in a statistic that defied all logic and expectation. The smaller, outgunned, injury-riddled Indiana Fever absolutely owned the Las Vegas Aces in the paint. They outscored the champions 50-38 in the painted area. Let that sink in. The area where Aaliyah Wilson and the Aces' size was supposed to be an insurmountable advantage became the Fever's greatest strength. This wasn't just a statistical anomaly. It was the result of a concerted, team-wide effort to attack the rim relentlessly on offense and to build a fortress on defense. Brianna Turner was a linchpin in this effort, altering shots with her length and providing the crucial last line of defense. Every time an Aces player drove to the basket, they were met with a wall of blue and yellow jerseys. The champions, a team built on precision and power, looked confused, and then frustrated, and then, finally, defeated. They were being out-hustled, out-muscled, and most importantly, outcoached. Coach Becky Hammon's post-game comments told the entire story, a mix of disbelief and raw frustration. She admitted they had no answer for Mitchell, that their defensive effort was really poor. It was the concession of a champion who knew her team hadn't just been beaten, they had been comprehensively outplayed and outschemed. Stephanie White's game plan had not only worked, it had worked to perfection, flipping every supposed advantage on its head and turning the Aces' greatest strengths into glaring weaknesses. The script everyone expected was in flames, and the Indiana Fever were holding the match. And as this incredible performance unfolded, a powerful story was also being written on the Indiana Fever's bench. All season long, the cameras had been fixated on Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation who took the league by storm. Now, sidelined by injury, she was in an unfamiliar role, a spectator to her team's biggest moment. But Clark wasn't just a spectator, she was a conduit for the team's energy. Every defensive stop, every tough basket, every timeout huddle, she was there, living every single possession. She was the first one off the bench to greet her teammates, her voice echoing encouragement, her passion a visible, tangible force. This wasn't the look of a sideline superstar waiting for her turn. This was the look of a leader completely invested in her team's success, whether she was on the court or not. Her presence on the sideline became a symbol of the Fever's defining philosophy, a culture that had been cultivated long before her arrival but one she had fully embraced: we over me. In an era of sports often dominated by individual brands and superstar egos, the Fever were proving that a collective spirit could be the most powerful weapon of all. And when Kelsey Mitchell's performance reached its historic crescendo, Clark's reaction captured the essence of this team perfectly. She didn't need an elaborate statement. She took to social media and offered just two simple, powerful words. Kelsey, unreal. That small gesture spoke volumes. It was a moment of profound respect from the league's brightest new star to the veteran who had carried the franchise's torch through its darkest years. It was a public acknowledgement that on a night when the world was watching the Fever, the spotlight belonged to Mitchell. This act of humility and support amplified the victory, showcasing a team chemistry that ran deeper than just on-court XS and OS. It was a sign that the foundation of this Indiana team was built on genuine mutual respect and a shared desire to win, regardless of who got the credit. This victory was, in many ways, the ultimate validation of that culture. It was the Fever's first semifinal win in nearly a decade, a cathartic moment for a franchise and a fanbase that had endured years of rebuilding and irrelevance. This wasn't just an upset, it was an exorcism of past failures, a loud and clear announcement that Indiana basketball was back on the national stage. And they achieved it not by relying on their one transcendent star, but by relying on each other. While Mitchell was the offensive engine and Boston was the defensive anchor, the contributions came from across the roster. Natasha Howard, a seasoned veteran with championship DNA, was a stabilizing force all night, quietly compiling another double-double, grabbing crucial rebounds, and making smart plays that don't always show up in the highlights. Lexi Hull, after locking down Jackie Young, hit timely, clutch three-pointers that felt like daggers, stopping any potential momentum the Aces tried to build. Every player who stepped onto the floor for Indiana understood their role and executed it with a desperate, unified focus. This was the embodiment of the "we over me" mantra that Coach Stephanie White had instilled in them. And as the final seconds ticked off the clock, the contrast between the two teams was stark. On the Las Vegas side, there was shock and disbelief. The faces of the champions were blank, their body language betraying a team that had no answers. The once boisterous home crowd was stunned into a muted silence, witnessing the unthinkable unfold on their home floor. The aura of invincibility that had surrounded the Aces for 2 seasons had been shattered. On the Indiana side, there was pure joy, but it was a controlled, professional joy. It was the celebration of a team that believed they belonged, a team that expected to win, despite what the rest of the world thought. They had walked into the lion's den, watched the lion get crowned, and then proceeded to tame it with a stunning display of execution and heart. This win was more than just a single victory in a best-of-5 series. It was a seismic event that reshaped the landscape of the WNBA playoffs. The Fever didn't just steal a game, they stole the entire narrative. They proved that a team with a strong culture and a brilliant game plan could overcome any obstacle, even a two-time defending champion at the height of its power. They had turned Aaliyah Wilson's coronation into their own coming-out party, and the entire league was forced to take notice. The question was no longer if the Fever could compete. The question was now just how far this incredible, resilient, and unified team could go. They had stared down a dynasty and hadn't blinked. One game down. One monumental, earth-shattering victory secured. But in the cold, harsh reality of a best-of-5 playoff series, one win is just that, one win. History whispers a sobering caution to the euphoric Indiana Fever and their fans. In the annals of professional basketball, nearly a third of teams who drop the opening game of a series still come back to win it all. And these aren't just any team, these are the Las Vegas Aces. They are champions not because they are invincible, but because they know how to respond to adversity. They have been tested before, they have faced setbacks, and they have always bounced back with a terrifying ferocity. The win in Game 1 wasn't the end of the story. It was merely the end of the beginning. Now, the real test begins. For Indiana, the next 40 minutes of basketball will be the most important of their season, a crucible that will determine whether this incredible upset was a beautiful, fleeting moment, or the start of a genuine championship run. Win again, and they head back to Indiana with a commanding 2-game lead, on the brink of one of the greatest upsets in WNBA history. Lose, and the series resets, all that hard-won momentum vanishing into the desert air. You can be certain that the Aces are preparing for Game 2 as if their season, their legacy, and their very identity are on the line. Because they are. Championship teams do not take humiliation lightly. Aaliyah Wilson, in particular, will be on a mission for redemption. Having your MVP ceremony overshadowed by a career night from your opponent and a stunning loss on your home floor is not something a player of her caliber will soon forget. Expect Las Vegas to make it an absolute priority to get her the ball in her favorite spots, to force-feed her the offense until she rediscovers her rhythm. Expect Jackie Young, smothered and frustrated by Lexi Hull's defense, to come out with a new level of aggression, using her speed and strength to get free before the Fever's defense can lock in. And you can be absolutely sure that head coach Becky Hammon, one of the sharpest minds in the game, is in the film room right now, dissecting every possession, identifying every weakness, and crafting a new game plan designed to counter everything that worked for Indiana. The Aces will not be caught off guard again. They will come out swinging, with the focused rage of a cornered champion. This presents a completely new challenge for the Indiana Fever. They now have to answer the hardest question in sports. Can they handle success? It's one thing to win as the scrappy underdog with nothing to lose and the world against you. It's another thing entirely to win when you have something to protect, when the opponent is throwing their absolute best counterpunch at you. This is uncharted territory for this young group. Can Kelsey Mitchell replicate her heroic performance when the defense is designed specifically to stop her, sending traps and double teams her way all night? Can Aaliyah Boston maintain her defensive discipline and composure against a motivated Aaliyah Wilson for a second straight game? These are the questions that separate good teams from great ones. This is where the Fever's culture, their unwavering belief in "we over me," will be tested like never before. It's what Coach Stephanie White preaches in every huddle, every press conference. Keep the main thing the main thing. They cannot look too far ahead, cannot get caught up in the hype of their own stunning victory. They must remain grounded in the standard of basketball they set for themselves, a standard built on defensive intensity, selfless offense, and unwavering belief in one another. It is this identity, this freedom their players have to empower each other, that gives them the opportunity to do something truly special. This is their shield against the coming storm. Game 2 is no longer just the next game on the schedule. It is the moment where an upset can become a legend, where a single fearless night can ignite a historic finals run. Indiana didn't just win a playoff game. They reclaimed their franchise's belief on the biggest stage, and in doing so, they showed the world exactly what this team is capable of.